Hey, I wanted to take a minute today and talk about something called the Babel Problem. If you don't know, the Babel Problem gets its name from the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11. And if you're not familiar with the story, basically what happens is the people, under the leadership of a man named Nimrod, decide that instead of spreading out and filling the earth like God told them to do, they're going to stay in one place. They're going to build a great city and a big tower to reach heaven. Okay, so what was this tower? More than likely, the tower was what's called a ziggurat. And just like the Bible says, it's baked bricks put on top of each other to build a big tower. Now, at the very top of this tower was going to be a temple. It's essentially just a place of rest and food and worship that they figured God could come down and he needed things, so they'd provide the things that he needed. In providing the things that he needed, he would bless them. Well, here's where the plot twist comes in. God did come down to see what they were doing. Instead of blessing them, he confused their language and scattered them over the earth so that they would spread like he told them to do in the first place. But I guess if you're following the leadership of a man named Nimrod, maybe you shouldn't expect anything less than confusion. Walton and Hill, in their book, The Old Testament Today, define the Babel problem this way. The problem is that people have corrupted the concept of God. And I think that's a pretty good definition. If I could simplify it even more, I'd say that we've reduced God into something that we like. Now, I say that because during the whole situation that was going on and the people deciding to do this, they made a pretty important statement. They said, let's make a name for ourselves, otherwise we'll be scattered. They wanted to reach God on their terms and in their way. And that's the problem. The problem is not that we don't have enough information about God, it's that we've corrupted it into something we like. Either we completely exclude it and get rid of God, or we reduce it into something that we can handle. Sometimes what we do is we decide because the concept of eternity is just too big, we just completely write God off. We say, because I can't define him in a laboratory, because I can't figure him out mathematically, then I'm not even going to pay any attention to it. Sometimes we go real simple and we say, well, look around, there's so much hurting and so much pain in the world. Obviously God isn't real, or else he would do something about this. Because we've corrupted the concept of God, we find ways to discredit him altogether rather than seek out and try to figure out who he is. And we can do this in a variety of ways, but the message is always the same. I know best, so I'm going to make myself known. The other part of the problem is that we come up with ways to define God on our terms, and we try to come up with ways to make God conform to what we want him to be. We want him to be pleased with us, so we come up with ways to make him pleased with us. We come up with ways to earn his favor, to earn his blessings, to earn his goodness, to earn, and that way God owes us. Now, of course, these ideas fall short, and what happens is we end up discouraged. Because when we try to define who God is and put him in a specific box and make him conform to that box, the only person bound to these rules that we've now created in our relationship with God is us. So we walk away discouraged, we walk away upset, we walk away mad, we throw our hands up and we say, that's it, I'm done with this, I'm not going to have a relationship with God anymore, because we've defined what that relationship is supposed to be, when in fact he's already defined the relationship. Enjoy him. Martin Luther, in the Shorter Catechism, answers the question, what's the chief end of man? And he says it's to glorify God and enjoy him forever. I think that's a pretty good summation. That's what we're supposed to do, is we're supposed to glorify God and enjoy him. But instead, when we try to come up with all these rules that we're now bound to, we end up frustrated because God's not going to conform to your image. He's not going to decide to change everything about him and put himself in the box you created that he should fit in. No, instead what happens is because we've created a false God, we get discouraged. Because that's always going to be the case. Whenever you create a false God, you're going to end up discouraged. You're going to end up frustrated, and you're going to end up sad, mad, and disappointed in the relationship because you've created something that isn't real in the first place. We've all done it at times, and we find new ways to do it all the time. It's hard to go back to what we're supposed to do. But maybe that's exactly what we are supposed to do, is get back to what we're supposed to know about God. Now, we know what we're supposed to know about God because he's already told us. He's given us his word. We call it the Bible. What we need to do is read it and study it and pay attention to it. Now, I want to be clear. We need to read and study the whole thing. All the way back in Genesis, all the way to Revelation. We can't discredit the Old Testament just because it's the Old Testament. It's the first thing God started telling us about himself, so we need to study it and read it and pay attention to it. Leviticus is a great example. If you look at it and you understand that God is revealing things about himself in the law, and that's what he's doing, is he's saying, here, do this, 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 and this. Understand, be holy, because I am holy. He was giving the Israelites a way to understand what it was to live a holy and separate life, because he is holy and separate. So if God's going to take the time to try to explain to you who he is, maybe you should pay attention. Maybe if we paid attention to what God says about himself, we wouldn't misconstrue and come up with faulty concepts of who he is. If you start studying the Bible all the way through, you're going to see so much more of God than you ever knew was possible. Because I can guarantee you this one thing. Whatever you think you know about God falls far short of who he actually is. I'm not even saying maybe you have bad theology about God. Maybe your theology is spot on. Maybe you know the real deal about God. There's still more of him to learn about. There's still more of him to discover. We're going to do it for an eternity in heaven. But we should start now by digging into his word. We should start now by reading it. We should start now by studying it and by sharing it with other people. That's the whole point of what I'm doing here. First, I want to take it in, and then I want to give it to other people, because I've come to understand that he's bigger and better than I could ever ask, think, or imagine. I just have to spend the time to get to know him. So should you. Okay, that's just a thought.